Brilliant to be here with you in Dubai today and with my excellent colleagues Mustafa and Panikos. So I'm going to tell you about the megatrends, and we've been working, the experts in Ipsos have been working to compile these alongside experts globally. They are key forces that you will see emerging today, but will impact on the world that we live in the future. These are things that will impact on our societies, on our consumers, on our brands. And it's important that we're aware of these as we make decisions in the short term, because those decisions we make today will impact on how we live in the future. So there are 10, as Mustafa rightly said, and they range from the economic, such as increasing inequality, to the social, and also demographic, which you mentioned, like aging societies, and rising urban populations, to technological, so improvements in AI in the workplace and how that changes the way that we work, and also environmental, rising pollution and climate change. And there are 10, and I've been allocated a wonderful 10 minutes to talk to you today, and so I've selected 3 that I thought that would be more interesting to you as a collective. And they are the rise in the urban population globally, megacities. The second, around healthier and sicker, which I will cover. And then thirdly, some of the things that impact on our brands, and those are around the fragmentation of the mass market and personalisation. So that's what I'll cover with you today. So firstly then, the rise in urban living. The proportion of people living in urban environments and conurbations has changed dramatically over time. There's an estimate now from the UN that by 2050, 2/3 of the world's population will be living in urban cities. And why do they move there? They move there for employment, they move there for education opportunities, but also, and more importantly nowadays, given flexibility in employment, is the quality of life that people believe they can get from living in an urban environment. So if you think about the estimates that I show you here, that's 50,000 people moving into a city daily, 1.5 million every month, and a country the size of Chile moving into an urban environment every year. So it's quite a substantive change within the world globally. But most of this growth is actually, you mentioned MENA's growth, but most of the growth that we see globally is anticipated to be outside of the MENA region. So back in 1950, there were 2 what we call megacities, which are cities with over 10 million inhabitants. That was Tokyo and also New York. By 1970, there were 20 megacities globally. Today we have 31, and it's estimated that by 2030 we will have 41 megacities globally. They will predominantly be in Africa and in China, so you can see the rise. These are the cities that are anticipated, and as I will cover just in a moment, it doesn't mean there couldn't be one in the MENA region, and I know there are plans underway. But this is what people think of when they think of a megacity. It's not necessarily slickness and ease of life. Often these cities have been unplanned in the past, and with unplanned city living, you end up with chaos. This is a city in Africa, a city that's close to being a megacity, and it has limited housing, not enough well-planned transport infrastructure, not enough hospitals to service the population. And that's what happens when we do not plan for significant boosts in urbanisation, as we forecast will be the case in future. A recent World Bank report stated that what we do around taking action about the increasing urbanisation we know we expect to see in future today will impact on the lives of our children and future generations, so it's imperative that we start planning for significant urbanisation. And as luck would have it, there's significant planning underway within the MENA region. And I just wanted to touch on a few examples, because these are completely contrasting to what we have seen from megacities in the past. So NEOM, which means new future, a nice mix between the Greek and the Arabic, which is planned for Saudi Arabia, will have a digitalised smart city, a sustainable city, with a business environment which is unique to that city, with its own taxes and regulation system in place, and its own opportunities and industry for employment. That is a well-planned city environment. Similarly in Masdar, which will be completely environmentally friendly and sustainable, And then the new capital city in Egypt, just outside of Cairo, which is being planned as well, which has a very snazzily titled capital city currently as its name. I'm hoping they will improve on that. So build it, and will they come? And that is a key question, because there have been 20 cities built around Egypt over the last 100 years that are not yet fully populated. But some of the things that people are looking for in city living now will be in abundance from the plans that are currently in place here. So my second megatrend is healthier and sicker. And those two things sound as if they are contrasts, but in fact, as I will show you, the trend that we're seeing today and also in the future is that we will be experiencing both of those things as a society, and that's something that we need to plan for again. So Mustafa mentioned about life expectancy. Globally, it's anticipated that life expectancy will increase. And that won't come as a surprise to you, given the improvements we've had in medical technology, in the quality of standards of living globally around access to clean water and low infant mortality now as well. So that's not a surprise. What is potentially a surprise is some of our Western countries, some of the experts are starting to not be 100% sure whether the life expectancy increases we see will continue in the same way they have. In the UK and the US now, people are starting to doubt that this trend will be the same because of the lack of investment in the healthcare systems and rising health inequalities. But in the main, life expectancy increasing. But will this longer life actually be a healthier life? And if you have a look, in the past, people predominantly died from infectious diseases. This is data from the World Health Organization. It was things like respiratory conditions, things associated with the quality of your life. But that's set to decline between now and 2030. What's on the rise is non-infectious disease deaths. These are things like chronic heart conditions, diabetes, things that are more linked to your lifestyle and the way you choose to live. And that's going to rise to almost 3 in 4 deaths. So what causes those non-infectious diseases? And a key factor, obesity and your lifestyle. And these are some statistics from the region. If you look at UAE, and almost 7 in 10 people are estimated to be obese or overweight. So this matters, but do we know it matters? And do we recognize the scale of the issue globally now, but also in the future? Ipsos conducts a piece of work called Perils of Perception, which is a really important piece that we do. It looks at the differences in how people perceive issues and what the reality is, and how different those things are, because it's only when we understand the reality that we're likely to take action. And we asked people globally across 27 countries, out of every 100 people in your country, how many do you think are obese or overweight? And I want to see whether you've been paying attention a little bit. So, I've got a game. I've picked some of the countries that we asked, including one in the MENA region, which is Saudi Arabia. And if you were looking at my last slide, you will know the answer. But can I ask, how many in the audience thinks that 10 in 100 people in Saudi Arabia is overweight or obese? Any hands? 20? 30? 40? Yeah, you've been conditioned. You should know this answer. 50, 60, 70? Yeah, you're conditioned. When we asked a group of people who were not conditioned, 28% believe that 28 people out of 100 are obese in the region, and the truth is it's 70. So there's a huge difference there in the perceptions. In Turkey, which is another extreme, and that's why I show it, 32 out of 100 were classified as obese by their fellow countrymen, when actually it's 65%, so another huge gap there in perceptions. And then in my country, in Great Britain, still a difference there by quite a sizable amount, not quite as much. But if we don't understand the level of issue that we face around obesity, the impact that that has on our deaths, and also the quality of life we have in later years, and we don't start thinking more about prevention rather than just cure, we will place a huge strain on our health systems globally. And it's great to see in the 2030 vision that this plays a reasonable role. You have improvements around well-being and increase in sport and exercising activity in there, so clearly it is recognised as an issue and that planning is happening in your region. So my third megatrend are the issues that impact on some of our brands globally, and this is where I use the phrase local, and some of you who work with brands will know what that is. There are issues around the localization. People want to feel that the brand is speaking to them in a local context, but also personalizing things more to their needs. So just having a look at what's happening, what's changing in context for brands. Well, firstly, global brand value is shifting. You'll see the decline here between 2008 and 2018 and where global brand value sits. Predominantly, still the US is very strong, but that's starting to decline. And the move towards the East and China is something that is a trend that will persist. But it's not just about the economics, and it's about people's personal preferences now that impacts heavily on brands. Almost 7 in 10 people globally tell us that they want to buy products that are locally developed and locally grown. Now this predominantly fits with food and produce, but it is a trend for other brands as well. And also the shift in where the value is for a brand. You'll have seen this slide potentially from a million strategy presentations that you've attended. It's a very common one now, but there are, as it says here, these 6 companies didn't exist 20 years ago, and the value that they get out of their supply chain has changed as well. It's about the consumer interface that they provide. It's not about the product, it's not about the service, it's about that interface with the consumer and the extent to which they can make it a personalised and efficient experience. And with this desire for personalisation comes issues around data sharing, and this is a megatrend in its own right now. The importance of how companies and how governments, how they treat individuals' data and the sharing of that data. And we will see data as a commodity become an increasing conversation topic. We did a study recently for the World Economic Foundation looking at data privacy, and some of the things that came out of our global study where people are in the dark about how companies and governments are using their personal data. Most people don't necessarily trust organisations to use their personal data in the right way, and consumers want transparency around that and assurances of the confidentiality. But also they value privacy and compensation more than they do the benefits. So you can't just tell consumers that the sharing of the data will help you to personalise for them and that it will help others to tailor products and services for them. That doesn't matter to them in the same way. They want you to give reassurances about privacy. So that is a quick run through a few of the megatrends that will shape our worlds today and tomorrow. And I urge you, short-term decisions, think about the longer term and the global context in which your decisions sit. Thank you very much.